Lyra had been warned about the Vacrine before accepting the xenobiologist position on Station Epsilon 7, Apex. Predators, the briefing officer had said, his voice tight with barely concealed fear. 4-inch claws. Bite force that could crush titanium. Don't turn your back on them. What the briefing had failed to mention was how utterly adorable the cubs were. Kiri had been the first to imprint on her. Those massive golden eyes watching Lyra's every movement from the moment she'd entered the nursery habitat. The cub was barely 3 months old, all oversized paws and fluffy, silver-black fur that belied the apex predator she would become. Where adult Vacrines stood 7 feet tall and had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most feared hunters, Kiri was the size of a large dog, with ears that twitched at every sound and a tendency to pounce on Lyra's shoelaces. The other researchers thought Lyra was insane for volunteering to hand-raise the orphaned cubs. The Vacrine were notoriously aggressive, their warlike culture built on strength and dominance. But Lyra had seen something in Kiri's eyes that first day, not aggression, but curiosity, intelligence, and perhaps, beneath all that predatory instinct, something softer. 6 weeks later, Lyra couldn't imagine her life without the little menace trailing her everywhere. "Kiri, no," Lyra said for the 3rd time that morning as the cub attempted to climb her leg using those needle-sharp claws. "I need to shower." "You can't come with me," Kiri chittered, a sound that fell somewhere between a purr and a growl, and sat back on her haunches, tail swishing with barely contained energy. 2 other cubs, Vara and Tusk, watched from their perches nearby, but Kiri had always been the boldest. The leader. Lyra sighed, grabbed her towel, and headed toward the communal washroom. She'd learned to shower quickly on the station. Water was a precious resource this far from Earth, but after a long day of feeding, cleaning, and documenting the cub's behavior, she was covered in everything from food paste to the strange, musky oil the Vacrine secreted when anxious. The washroom was blessedly empty. Lyra hung her towel, adjusted the water temperature, and stepped under the spray with a grateful moan. Hot water, actual hot water, not the recycled lukewarm trickle, was a luxury she'd never take for granted again. She was halfway through shampooing her hair when she heard it, a soft scratching at the door, followed by a familiar chitter. "Kiri, go back to the habitat," Lyra called, squeezing her eyes shut against the soap. "I'll be done in 5 minutes." The scratching intensified. Then came a sound that made Lyra freeze. A low, keening whine. Not aggressive. Not playful. Terrified. Lyra rinsed the soap from her face and peeked around the shower curtain. Through the frosted glass of the washroom door, she could see Kiri's silhouette. The cub was pacing frantically, clawing at the door with increasing desperation. What the Lyra barely had time to react before the door burst open. Station locks weren't designed to withstand a panicked Vacrine cub, apparently. Kiri charged into the washroom, claws skittering on the wet tile, her pupils blown wide. She wasn't alone. Vara and Tusk tumbled in behind her, all 3 cubs in a state Lyra had never seen before. Their ears were pinned flat against their skulls, their fur standing on end, and they were making sounds that could only be described as distress calls. Hey, it's okay," Lyra said, stepping out of the shower, water still cascading down her body. "What's wrong?" Kiri didn't hesitate. She launched herself at Lyra, claws extended, and for one heart-stopping moment, Lyra thought the cub was attacking her. But instead of sinking those claws into flesh, Kiri grabbed onto Lyra's wet arm and started pulling, trying to drag her away from the shower. Understanding hit Lyra like a physical blow. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You think the water is attacking me." It made perfect sense. The Vacrine homeworld was arid, with rainfall so rare it was considered a catastrophic event in their legends. These cubs had never seen falling water before. To them, the shower wasn't a hygiene tool, it was a threat. Thousands of tiny projectiles striking their human caretaker, who stood there voluntarily, making sounds of contentment while under assault. They thought they were rescuing her. Vara had joined Kiri, both cubs now attempting to bodily remove Lyra from what they perceived as mortal danger. Tusk, the smallest and most cautious, stood at the ready, his tiny claws extended toward the shower as if preparing to fight it off. Lyra's heart swelled with something she couldn't quite name. These weren't mindless predators. They were children, alien, deadly children, yes, but children nonetheless, trying to save someone they cared about. "It's okay," Lyra said softly, crouching down to their level despite being soaking wet. She reached for the shower controls and shut off the water. "See? It's not hurting me." "It's safe." Kiri chittered uncertainly, pressing her furry body against Lyra's leg. Her entire body was trembling. Lyra ran her fingers through the cub's fur, heedless of the claws that could open her up from throat to navel. "You tried to protect me," Lyra murmured. "You brave, silly little thing." She turned the shower back on, just a trickle this time, and held her hand under it. All three cubs watched with rapt attention, their ears swiveling forward. "Water," Lyra said, letting it run over her fingers. "It's nice. Humans need it." Kiri cautiously extended one paw, touched the stream, and jerked back with a startled yelp. But curiosity, that fundamental trait that transcended species, won out. She tried again, this time letting the water run over her paw for several seconds before pulling back and licking at the moisture curiously. Vara was braver. She stepped fully under the spray, shook herself violently, and made a sound that might have been surprise or indignation. Tusk remained skeptical, watching his siblings from a safe distance. Lyra laughed, a sound that echoed off the tile walls. She was naked, soaking wet, surrounded by 3 baby apex predators in a station washroom, and she had never felt more at peace. Later, when she filed her daily report, she made sure to note the incident. Not as a security concern or a behavioral problem, but as evidence of something the galaxy had insisted was impossible. Vacrine were capable of empathy, of sacrifice, of love. The Galactic Council would dismiss it, probably. They'd call it instinct or pack behavior or a dozen other clinical terms, but Lyra knew better. She'd seen it in Kiri's eyes when the cub thought she was in danger. That wasn't programming or evolution, that was choice. And if a 3-month-old Vacrine cub could choose compassion over self-preservation, what did that say about the nature of predators? What did it say about the nature of humanity, that Lyra had chosen to trust them in return? As Lyra finally finished her shower, this time with 3 slightly damp, very confused cubs standing guard outside the stall, she realized that maybe the galaxy had it backward. Maybe the real strength of humanity wasn't in their technology or their weapons or their stubborn refusal to quit. Maybe it was in their ability to see past teeth and claws, to find the person beneath the predator, and to offer trust when every instinct screamed danger. Kiri chittered softly and Lyra smiled. "Come on, troublemakers," she said, wrapping herself in a towel. "Let's get you dried off before you catch cold." The cubs followed her without hesitation, 3 tiny apex predators trailing after their strange, water-loving human, ready to fight off the next shower if necessary. After all, that's what family did.